One. All right, blast off. So, hey, I'd like to welcome everybody to the Monday, September 28th, 2020 meeting of the Sykesville Mayor and Town Council. This meeting is taking place via Zoom US teleconference. In order to give public comment or to listen to the meeting, you can call 1-301-715-8592. The meeting ID is 876-9779-2755, and the password is 815058. You will not be able to, well, that's kind of, it's already started, so the meeting's going, but once you enter, you will be placed on mute. And if you wish to ask a question, right, I guess it's going to be *9, right, Carrie? So *9 if you wish to ask a question. If it's not an item that's on the agenda, we'll just take comment. If it is an agenda item, you can raise your hand basically by pushing *9, and then you can comment on that item. So we'll get to the public comments next. So our call to order. So we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance followed by a brief moment of silence. If you want to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moment of silence. Okay. All right, so that brings us to our public comments. As I mentioned, public comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. Again, please alert Carrie, our town clerk, if you'd like to make a public comment by pressing *9. Any public comments, Carrie, or are we good?
Nobody is chiming in for comments, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, all right. So our first item on the agenda is the consent agenda. The only item on there is the minutes from September 14th, 2020. Is there any comments, or does somebody want to take this off?
One comment in the comments in reference to the HOA $10,000, Carrie, if we could update that just to say, it was just a question that I had. There's an October 5th meeting coming up about the annual budget, and I wanted to know how to answer any questions that HOA would have. In the minutes, it says that they have an interest in doing the sidewalk. That is not true. They have not expressed any interest to me in reference to that, but I just wanted to make sure that I knew what to say if they asked a question about it. Other than that, Mayor, I don't have any issues with the minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, and we'll get that updated. So with that update, anybody else, or can we have a motion to approve the minutes, or the consent agenda rather, I'm sorry.
Motion to approve the consent agenda with mentioned corrections.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, so the consent agenda is approved. All right, and our first item of business is this unfinished business from our last meeting in reference to the strategic demolition grant. And this is the request for the change of scope. So we had some comments last time about some things to change it. The developers, I believe, are on the meeting here tonight if you wanted to ask any questions. I think we were trying to get a little bit of additional information. I don't think that any additional information has come yet, but they're here to answer questions. So Joe, do you, any comment, or?
Well, again, we have been working with the developer to figure out exactly how, or I guess what the best way would be to be able to give a comprehensive update over the Warfield project. Unfortunately, because of potential disclosure issues, we haven't been able to come to any kind of agreement exactly how that needs to happen. We are still working with the town attorney to try to figure out what the best way might be if there is potential for a closed session at a future date. However, but because the DHCD grant, or the strategic demolition grant, we're getting close to, I guess, a time period where the state really needs an answer from the town as to whether or not we're going to be okay with moving forward with these revised scope, or the revised scope that was presented about 45 days ago now. we really do need just to try to figure out if we're comfortable moving forward as is, or if we would rather wait until we can get a better update from the developer on this. Unfortunately, I think we are kind of in a little bit of a time crunch. So I would hate to see the $750,000 grant be spent outside of the town if there is a way to keep the money here. And maybe there's an agreement we can come up with the developers about the potential for no other grants are going to be applied for until we get more information or get better updates on how the future of those historic structures are going to be handled. But again, at least for the purpose of tonight, I think we're still hoping to go ahead and get a decision one way or another on that revised scope of work for the strategic demolition grant. And I do know Steve McLeaf is on the call tonight in case somebody has a direct question they want to ask the developer to maybe hopefully answer a question or two about that revised scope.
And Roger Conley is on too, Joe.
I didn't see Roger pop up. Okay.
No, yeah, I'm here and I'm happy to address that if you'd like.
Yeah, I mean, Joe, what I will say, I mean, the reason for the scope change, just so everybody's clear, because I don't think it was explained the way, it wasn't explained with as much precision as I would have liked. With the Trump tax law changes, the loophole for sheltering these grants from federal income taxes was lost. We are being advised by Baker Tilly, which is a very reputable international accounting firm. We have put them through the ringer on this. And this was a change that we did not become aware of until interpretation. It was after we applied for the grant, and the interpretation wasn't clear to us, until after that. What it comes down to is if those funds go directly into a building, which is a depreciable asset, and I understand that's one of the problems here, that it is taxable at the investor's marginal rate. So let's assume that the investors at the highest marginal federal rate, which is 37%, a $750,000 grant would be taxed at $277,500 for a net of $472,500, and that tax liability would have to come out of the investor's pocket. It could not be netted out of the grant. It's terribly tax inefficient to take this grant and invest it in that manner. So as an alternative, and I want to be clear, we've been having direct discussions with Secretary Holt and his staff for well over 2 years. We have been directly engaged with Secretary Holt through the governor, and this took a lot of work to uncover this $750,000 and get a commitment for future grants. So we didn't want to let it go. Really the scope, as we understand it, and talking to the Secretary's office and the grant administrators, it's primarily their purview. And so if there was any confusion there, we apologize for that. But at the end of the day, we had to find a tax efficient way to invest these funds. And the way to do that is to put it into infrastructure, and infrastructure is a value enhancing activity for the overall project. And as the town attorney, Dennis Hoover, pointed out when he last spoke with you all, it's and going back to the hearings on this grant originally, this is about getting sources from a lot of different places to overcome a $30 million deficit in these buildings. And by $30 million deficit, I mean that the cost to rehab these buildings is about $400 a foot. And
Catherine, are you?
Whoa! Somebody yelling at me to stop?
Yelling over you, not at you.
that was there were some strong lungs. The cost is about $400 a foot. And we're seeing that number confirmed on our bids, our hard bids on building F. And, you know, we sold the most recent building we sold, which was the old dance studio building, only sold for $170 a foot. So that's where that $30 million gap comes from. And the reason I'm willing to talk about that in open forum is because it's been spoken about in open forum before with the state. I would love, and Roger and I would love to get in closed session to be able to have a candid discussion about some of the financial elements and challenges, particularly for those of you who are fairly new to the town council. But the questions that we were hearing, a lot of them, and a lot of the questions that we get outside of outside of these meetings are of such a confidential nature and also speak to contractual details with the town that we believe a closed session would be appropriate to give you an update, as we did, I believe, in November 2018. And we can speak more freely in that case if there's an understanding, of course, that you know, we're sharing a lot of sensitive and proprietary information. But that's largely why I can't go beyond saying a lot of the things and talking about the tax treatment any more than that, because we don't want to cause problems for ourselves down the road. But at the end of the day, the $750,000 going into the town park to remediate wetlands and improve the town park, it really benefits both the town and the development. It opens up, helps open up the possibility of quicker development of parcels A, B, and C where the wetlands are, if a user comes along, and or when a user comes along. So, you know, that work, you know, we have a very short window of time every year to get that work done for environmental reasons. We missed the window this year. We would like to start the improvements next spring so the wetlands are remediated and the town the town park improvements are in place, which includes an expansion of the trail network, bridges, expansion of the wetlands and the pond that's down there. We think that's of great public benefit. It benefits it benefits us in terms of reducing the overall project cost and getting parcels A, B, and C ready, more ready for development. The other thing I would say is, to the extent there are monies left over, and costs unfortunately have gone way up post-COVID here, but you know, we have existing tenants and owners out there, and their asphalt paving and curb and gutter and parking lots and whatnot have been neglected for over 20, 30 years. And we have to make sure we're taking care of them. So we're being good stewards to them and keeping them happy. And so they're out speaking positively about this project. They've been great allies for us. So it's not that the money's not going to good use. I understand the visceral response to wanting to see it go into the buildings. It's just unfortunate that the tax code changed the way it is. And as many of you probably know, when the tax code changes, the interpretation isn't always known the moment that the actual law is passed. It takes time, and we moved on this as soon as we could. So happy to give in a closed session. Certainly, we think it's overdue to have a more comprehensive update. We'd like to speak with you with the utmost candor, but we cannot. We have to be careful. Particularly some of those, again, a lot of it's confidential and proprietary, and some of it is really contractual and legal in nature that we think would warrant a closed session.
Okay, thanks, Steve. This is Roger. Just a 10-second closing. We've been working with lots of different elements of the state trying to find funds. This was to be the first of 3 annual grants to try to help us. Our first preference was to get this money deployed in the historic buildings. It was only as we got into it that we discovered that there were all sorts of difficulties around that. in going after this money, we were careful to put the town's needs first, and we had gotten personal assurances that the town's grant for the rest of the park would be considered first. We really hate to discourage the state from investing with us in this property, and so we really appreciate your positive action on this tonight to encourage further activity. Thanks for considering.
So just a couple of points. So as Joe has mentioned in the past, we've got to have specific items to request the executive session. You know, we can't just have a random conversation about the project because it's due to the Open Meetings Act. And I apologize if this happened in the past, but just to be, you know, these things there's specific, very specific rules that we need to follow. And, you know, so I want to make sure you guys are aware of that. So if we have specific items that are related to contractual stuff that can fall under those guides, then we can discuss those and only those. So we need to be mindful of that. And when we schedule an executive session, we can't deviate from those topics, you know? So I know there's a desire to do this, but it's really not, it's not something we can facilitate. Not Joe will work with you to clarify what's acceptable in that manner. So, and then I do have one question though. So
we appreciate that. I think the contractual and economic elements
yes,
are the specific ones.
Right. Anything that pertains to that kind of stuff, yes, can be, you know, those items can be delineated and we can work on those kind of things. So I guess the one question I have though is so this tax policy applies to any grant, right? So any grant that ever comes down the road is going to be taxed like this? Because that just the concerns that I have, if that's the case, is that we're never going to get any money for this, right? I mean,
well, I can answer to that. And
okay.
Look, this is part. The first thing is, I'm going to send out some additional information. I had hoped to send it out before. It's already in the public domain since they're mostly emails that I had sent to that Roger and I had sent to Joe and the mayor. But you know, this affects the way, unfortunately, the escrows are structured. And that's all I will say on it right now. It very well.
Speaking of the grants, though, not the escrows, just the
but they're okay. But I understand. But you're also talking about what you just said was very broadly. We're never going to get any investment in this. You know, public investment
from grants. Any future grants, are all the grants going to be taxed this way? That's my
no. It did foreclose one obvious broad pathway to assist us. There are others open that we will be talking with you in the future.
It's state grants. Federal grants would not be taxed.
Okay.
So if I'm not mistaken, excuse me, this is Councilwoman Link. If I'm not mistaken, then from what Roger said, this is the first of 3 expected on an annual basis. Is that correct? From the state.
That's the intention, but it has been long coming, and there's I can't speak for the state at this point. That early on we were told it was the first of 3. That's correct.
And were they all set at the same award amount of $750,000?
That was the intention, yes.
It was just let me interject real quick. It was a soft commitment, and obviously it was a soft but a good faith commitment. And obviously we don't know how COVID changes any of this with where the state budget is. But we felt fairly confident in our discussions with the HCD that they were going to follow through on those additional 2 commitments in the future.
But then we're right back to where we're at right now. The
Right.
scope of work for those grant applications would then not be written the way the first one was for the purposes of improving any part of any one of the historic buildings. They would have to be written for something other than that, so that it's not on a depreciable.
It wouldn't be able to go into the building probably without solving the tax problem. It could go into infrastructure, parking lots. There are all sorts of expenses that are unrelated, that aren't part of the depreciable asset, that aren't part of the tax credit portions of it. So we think we can be creative and find other ways to deploy that and advance the project.
Mm-hmm.
So what I had asked for, and I don't know, look, I'm trying to be positive, I know you guys are struggling, but at the same time, our biggest concern is for these old structures, right? And we're never going to get, well, I'm not saying never say never, right? But it's been challenging at best to get a nickel invested in these buildings on at any front. And I know there's, so anyway, I guess what my point is would you be willing to commit to something from the sale of parcel A, B, or C when we put this infrastructure in it to take money from that sale and then put it into these buildings? Would you take $750,000?
I mean,
sale of
Ian, Ian, let me jump in real quick on this.
Actually, then you could write that off. That would be deductible, right? It would be part
Ian,
of the, yeah.
Mayor Shaw, first off, again, I'm going to go back to the number, and we've said it. We've since I've been involved in this project, we've been saying it. There's a $30 million gap here.
I know. So we
okay. So okay, hold on a second. First thing is to say that we haven't put a nickel into these buildings.
I didn't say that. What I said was getting a nickel put into them is tough. I did not say you did not put a nickel in there. I said getting money into these buildings is challenging, and I'm not blaming you for that. I'm talking about from government sources, from everything. I know you guys put money into the project.
Okay. So one of the commitments we made at closing was to put money into building F to get that up and serviceable.
Right.
Okay. In service. Okay. And we have gotten that plan approved. We have done the roof on that building with the exception of the porch and the porch roof that needs to be rebuilt. And that will be done hopefully in the next couple of months. The site plan's done on that. We're working on the public works agreements now, and we've actively been out seeking a user for those buildings. But the notion that with a gap that big, you have to be very, very careful about where you're putting money because they're not unlimited funds. And nobody is going to invest in those buildings if they don't have a user. You have to remember, okay, and we've gotten that building about as far as we can without having a user to move forward and have it financeable. And that building still has a gap, but we can find a way, we're finding ways to plug that gap. We have a user, we can go to economic development, for instance, and get them to put money in for tenant fit up and things like that. But at the end of the day, it's very rare, particularly in a secondary or a tertiary market, and it's really become rare even in primary markets, to big markets like Columbia, DC, Northern Virginia, to go out and build out buildings in full on spec without a user. First and foremost, it's hard to finance them. So we have put a lot of money into F and we have followed through on that commitment. But the thing I want to remind everybody, and the market data supports this, that we've got, hundreds of thousands of square feet of commercial here zoned in a market, the Carroll County market, that the market study that we had to commission as part of this deal for the town and subsequent analysis from brokers and our own analysis, the Carroll County market absorbs about, at best, 20,000 square feet net positive commercial a year. And building F is 17,748 square feet. So finding a user is really, really hard, but we've been working to do that. And that is a commitment that we made there. The other thing that we've done the past 2 years that people aren't aware of, and we've discussed it with the town, but folks don't seem aware of it. Before this whole COVID thing hit, we had worked 2 years with the legislature and I personally sat with Senator Hester and Secretary of Planning Rob McCord to write legislation to not only study Warfield, and it was approved, okay, and a study happened that studied not only Warfield, but all the historic campuses around the state like Warfield. And we had steering committee meetings and study panel meetings for a year leading up to the last legislative session. And there were a very specific list of recommendations for the 3 case studies, of which Warfield was one. Going into the last legislative session, which we all know was terminated early and because of COVID, we were working on a second piece of legislation with Senator Hester and others to set Warfield up as a pilot program for a $10 million catalytic tax credit, historic tax credit that was modeled after one that had been done in the state of Ohio. And the study, if you guys are interested, I had provided the link a while back and a hard copy of the study to the town manager and the mayor, but I'll send it. I'll make sure everybody gets it in a packet of information in the next couple of days. But at the end of the day, that $10 million catalytic tax credit would have been a game changer for us, combined with some other incentives that had been put on the table by the Secretary of Housing and Community Development. And unfortunately, when COVID hit, that legislation got pulled with a lot of other legislation, and we're having to go back to the drawing board. So to answer your broader question, or to address the broader comment that you made about funding, we've spent a good part of the last 2 years, both time and money, testifying, pushing things through the legislative process to solve a problem not only for Warfield, but it would solve a problem for a lot of projects around the state, properties around the state that look like Warfield. So while I understand everybody's frustration, I do want to be clear that that legislative effort, that effort that we've put forth in Annapolis, has been Herculean, and it moves the needle big time if we pull it off. What's going to happen this legislative session? I don't know. We all know what's going on with state budgets right now. What we're hearing from people in Annapolis is that it largely depends upon who wins this presidential election. So because of the money that will come from the feds to the states if Biden wins, that's what we're hearing. So we're gearing up right now for the next legislative session. We are bleeding right now, like a lot of developers are, carrying projects that are moving, not appearing on the surface to move very, very far, but we're killing ourselves out there. And we are doing the things that we need to do to be successful long term, not just plowing money in for the sake of the way things look. So I don't know how to be any more direct about it than that. Be happy to. The last thing I would say, we can't do closed meetings, but we've always been willing to meet with people individually. We've done that before. We're always happy to come up and spend a day or an evening in Sykesville and talk to anybody who wants to talk to us about it. So, and to give them a briefing.
So I have a question. This is Councilman Schofield. So with COVID, that did change a whole lot of things. And based on what you just said, there's quite a few risk factors out there in reference to where financing might come from. One of the veins of the conversation that's happened over the last couple of sessions where we spoke about this is trying to figure out what the long-term game plan is for that property and what your visioning is for that property, and if anything's changed since when the various ideas came out initially. Has there been any contemplation in reference to that? And I'm new to this project. I'm one of the newer council members you mentioned earlier, but that is something that I think all of us have interest in knowing is, do you see any differences between the original plan and where you're headed now? And I don't know if that's something you feel like you can share or not, but that's something that we do have questions about.
Yeah, and I thank you for that question. Yes, I mean things. So just so you know, things were changing before COVID, largely because of the guidance, not guidance. Let me say, largely because of the nature of the support that was being offered to us in other areas at the state level. That was largely driving some of our thoughts on use. Some of our thoughts on use have always, I'll speak for myself, I look at the market. I've always looked at the market, and my thoughts on use have always been driven by what I know about the market. But that's not always congruent with what what other people's visions are. But what happened was that in our discussions last fall and through the legislative session with folks at the state, there were some funding sources that would offered up that were fairly substantial that would certainly drive use. So what we were planning to do pre-COVID was to come in and sit down with the town manager and the mayor, along with the Secretary of Housing and Community Development, the Secretary of Planning, to kind of roll out some ideas and to make a pitch. And that was really at the state's urging because of the nature of the funding that they could bring to bear. Obviously, we got sidetracked. And now it's 6 months later, and we are trying to set up that meeting, adjusting for some things that we, adjusting for some other contingencies as we brainstorm how the world might even further change because of COVID, and a lack of funding at the state level. So the answer is yes, we'd be happy to talk about those things. We have some tangible things we've been working on for a while in terms of visioning. We would plan on having that discussion hopefully in October with the participation of the two secretaries I mentioned, and we requested the mayor, the town manager, and Chairman Inslow from the Planning Commission, and also from the historic Norman Fogg from the Historic District Commission be a part of that meeting with the secretaries and Roger and me. And then, and let me just say one other thing, Jeremiah. I think it's kind of interesting that this is all coming about at a time when the comprehensive plan is being reconsidered. So maybe it's timely. And we plan on sharing that after we finish up the presentation. I think it's October 20th we had requested a meeting.
So I want to say a couple things if that's okay. Wait, first of all, is my microphone working, Carrie?
Yep.
So sorry about that, Steve. I was the one who
That's okay.
so I apologize for that.
Yeah, it's okay.
I think we're kind of getting off the track a little bit. We're talking about a $750,000 grant to improve a town park and to make our town better right now. We're talking about accepting this change of scope to the work. The state is okay with it. Who's to say that this project is not more I'm hitting a thing, but not more attractive to outside investors if we have a finished park right next to it. I just think we're trying to solve the whole Warfield problem with a grant that is going to be given to us to create a park for the town that everybody could use.
So thanks, Al. I appreciate that. And I appreciate the questions. I guess the concern that I've had is trying to, as I said, is trying to get some commitment for the old buildings, right? So that's what I keep coming back to. And I don't want to minimize for a minute the work you guys did. I know you've done a lot of work at the state level, so I do want to be mindful of that. I know you were really trying hard on that. The realities of that, all that effort could be mired in, the economic realities of the state budget. I mean, they've created with the Kirwan Commission a $4 billion shortfall. It's kind of false in a sense because they passed the legislation and created an immediate deficit, right? But I know the willingness at the state level is going to be to try to dump as much money into education as they can, which could leave the coffers hurting for other kinds of projects. And I know you've got significant investment in the project, so I don't want to minimize that either. I want to be clear about that. I want to recognize that and all the work that you've done. I guess what I was asking for, what I was saying before we got off on that is, would you be willing to set aside some money? And I don't know, for the old buildings, I mean, like out of a sale of A and B or C, or if this money benefits those parcels and could create a sale for that, I don't see what the problem is of committing to reinvest this money, because then it would be, like I was saying, a tax deduction.
Mayor, with all due respect, I mean, this is a contract negotiation and should be something, and there are.
Well, I'm not negotiating a contract. I'm talking about this change you're making tonight on this 750.
Well, okay, so what I'm going to say is this. This gets back to some things going on with some contractual provisions that I don't want to, we can't speak about publicly. I don't think the town should be, and it's tied to that. The second thing is, I think that and I mean this not sarcastically, with all due respect, when it comes down to brass tacks, we've talked to the state. The scope of work really is ultimately within their purview, and how we make our capital stack work, okay, needs to be left up to us. Who we partner with, our financial sources, it really does. And in this case, it's our understanding, and we entered into this with the understanding. And I believe when I went back and looked at the meeting last summer, the town attorney made some statements to this effect and would agree with me, not to put words in his mouth, but I went back and I listened to what was said. Really, the municipalities in this case are a contract vehicle. They're a conduit. And I think we are getting into some things here. We've got to watch our capital position right now. We've got to be able to run our development and partner with whom we want to, and be able to be creative about bringing in capital sources and not having things roadblock that.
And Mayor, there is an existing commitment to fund additional release payments out of the sale of any one of those enterprises into the escrow funds that are directed solely.
That's a good point.
To the historic buildings. I have a standing commitment. I'm 8 years and millions of dollars into this and never made a nickel. So to increase the burden in some capacity in order to accept free money from the state, I don't entirely understand.
Okay. All right. Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, I've got comments. Everybody's just waiting for Stacy's comments. There's Councilman Grassley laughing at my comments about my comments. I have several questions. I think what Councilmember Jeremiah Schofield was just referring to with respect to our desire for updates is rooted in our uncertainty and the discomfort that's related to our uncertainty with respect to a portion of our agreement with the developer, specifically pertaining to the buildings, the historic buildings. And because we haven't had any update, even close to one that was just provided this evening to us, the only thing we have to go on is that which we're aware of and the outward things that have taken place even within the development corporation itself with respect to its members that were once part are no longer a part of it, and that and along with the dismissal of one of your partners went with it the knowledge base and the experience of historical preservation and restoration. And the fact that the G building was completed from foundation to roof ridge for roughly $900,000, and not just a cold dark shell, but completed, secured and completed and rentable and usable by a tenant is the only numbers we have available to us as a foundation to build our expectations on. And I appreciate the information with respect to the dollars per yard of improvements that are going to be required, and how that ultimately ends up at a $30 million figure, and the shortfall or the gap, as you referred to it, Steve. All of that is very much appreciated. But I also know that you guys have gotten bids, right? Or correct me, I shouldn't say I know that you have. Correct me if I'm wrong. You've received bids for, let's say, all of the roof repairs. Each one of the buildings that needs significant roof repair, you've received a bid to do each of those individually. And if that's not, is that correct?
Well, hang on a second. First and foremost, I don't think it's appropriate to talk about partnership issues of ours in a public forum.
Steve, what I'm
Um,
referring to
wait,
is
so
the
let me-
reason why we have questions for
Wait,
updates and why we
Stacy.
have uncertainty. That's why I referred to that.
Well, Stacy, with all due respect, and
Sure.
we give regular updates to the mayor and to the town manager. And honestly, I mean, we're happy to talk to anybody who wants to talk to us about these things, but there is something about coming into a public meeting and not being able to speak as candidly about certain financial matters going in behind a development. We just can't do that in a public meeting. And
My question to you is, have you received quotations on the improvements to the roofing on each of the buildings individually?
Yes, we have, and we've also received detailed bids on environmental remediation for the entire project.
Okay.
We have received a comprehensive bid on the site work and soup to nuts on building F to deliver that building in full.
Right.
Yeah.
So my question is, if you've received a bid on each individual roof on each one of those buildings that need significant repair, my concern is that, as an example, the auditorium building, you know, is decaying before everyone's eyes because it's not watertight, and there's a gaping hole in its roof, and there has been for a very, very long time. And I'm not telling you anything you're not aware of. I'm mentioning it because I'm sure members of the council are unaware of that, and the public is unaware of that. And I'm asking why it would not be, why 472.5 wouldn't benefit closing up a roof on any one of those structures, and if 472.5 would accomplish that on any one of those buildings.
I will have to, well, first off, the roofing on those buildings is very expensive. I think I'd have to go back and look at the bids. I think the cost to repair building F, I don't want to get into specific numbers. It was well into six figures. We have done some repairs on some of the buildings out on some of the roofs out there to stopgap. The problem with that building is, you're right, it's been the better part of a decade that that water has been, you know, pouring in through a hole over there. And you're correct. You know, we have limited resources. But I don't know what any of that has to do with partnership matters or anything like that. And I wish we would, because
it has nothing to do with the specific question I asked about the roof. It has everything to do with mine, and I know other members of this council's confidence in the improvement to those buildings getting done, or even getting initiated, to the extent that they don't decay to an extent where that $30 million becomes much more. I'm not, and I know where Ian is coming from, or I believe I do, when he says about how difficult it is to secure money for the improvement of these buildings. And then when you have secured money for the improvement of the building, you don't want to use it because of the change in the tax code and the tax liability associated with it. And I do understand that. And I know that it you know, decisions are made, financial decisions have to be seen from many sides. I'm not questioning that. I'm just saying you're looking at not having all of the $750,000, but what I'm saying is you have $472,500 to do something with it that we all, including yourself, had intended to use it for. And I would love to know a timeline. See, these are the updates that we would like to have, and they're not things that can't be shared publicly. We're not asking you to divulge information. I don't even know what it is that you know you're referring to in your email to us. Excuse me, when you say that there are sensitive matters that are pending between the town and the developer, that I don't know what pending. I
I
don't
think
know.
what Stacy,
And
but
I'm not the only
that's
one.
my kind of that's kind of my point though. I think the communicate, look, in
Wait,
most, in,
hold on a second, because let me clarify, because Steve, that's not accurate what you said about us getting information. Quite frankly, when we talked to me and Joe talked to Secretary McCord, we didn't even know about all the efforts that were going on in Annapolis. We're never asked to testify. We're never provided those documents.
I'm just not going to have this argument with you.
I don't want to argue with you, but what I'm
I'll
saying,
go back. I will go back. and pull
if
the
you
emails.
provide
I
updates
will-
to the council, right, and say, here's the efforts we've been doing, here's what we've taken so far that are not sensitive, Joe, we'll send them out to the entire council. I want to be clear. We're not getting information that we're holding out on the council for. We're not getting the information. I mean, so there's been a few conversations about escrows, and that's about it. And that's not an update in our mind. We had no change
and
presented to us.
the truth of the matter is that the town last legislative session was invited to testify on his historic tax credit.
You didn't invite me to.
Joe, I'm the mayor. We spoke with Joe.
Mhm.
And Joe was also, Joe, you'll recall that you attended a legislative update on historic tax credits that we sponsored with Senator Hester, and we scheduled Preservation Maryland, and you most certainly were invited. As an example,
I wasn't personally invited. I mean, nobody ever sent me an invitation and said, Mayor, we'd love to have you out here and testify in Annapolis, or make me aware, send me the bill you were talking about. I mean, I didn't have any of that
There was
stuff.
a briefing in Baltimore in December. And you certainly were invited, and we have shared a lot of information about those ongoing efforts with the various members of the state.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not talking about the briefing. I'm talking about anything that was came out of that. That here's what we're proposing. I never got any of that stuff, and I was never invited.
Mayor Shaw, I think it was 3 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
I was surprised when we talked, and you all, and we had provided it. You all were not aware of the study we had worked a year on, and frankly, the consultant contacted the town. The consultant who was hired by the state contacted the town and got input from the town for the study.
Well, I think what the council needs is, and feel free to do it. Put together a list of things you've done, and we'll share.
But this is, I'm trying to respond to and kind of defend ourselves here with what we've heard from state. Excuse me?
I said, yeah, me too. I just don't want to.
Well, no, the stuff that Stacy was saying, Stacy,
don't have any information.
We've laid it out there, and the consultant who was working on the study was in touch with the town. There was communication, but in most jurisdictions, you talk to staff and you have a presumption as a developer that it's going to make it to the town council. If we have to come,
I mean, let's not. Joe's sitting right here. He's been communicating. I don't think Joe's holding out on anything. Are you, Joe? You got any secrets you haven't shared with anybody? I mean, come on.
Not that I know of.
I don't think it's accurate, but I don't want to get into this right now. I guess my last couple questions, and you can share, everybody else can have any additional questions, is how long right now, if a user came along to F, would it take to get F ready to be occupied? F building right now. Like if I came and said, Steve, I want to get the building, how long till I get it occupied?
We are on the cusp of being able to pull permits. All the plans are approved. We're working on the public works agreements. Okay, let me finish, please. If we pulled permits next month, it's probably a 9 month to 12 month schedule, depending. One of the problems right now, okay, and the reason I give you a range, one of the problems right now, I don't know if anybody's had a dishwasher break lately. I had a dishwasher break lately, and as an example, in my home, it's back ordered for 2.5 months. I mean, so we're seeing that with materials across the board. So that could influence that schedule. We've also seen lumber prices go up somewhere between 100% and for specialty lumber, almost 300%. Okay, because of shortages. So we don't even know if our numbers are still good. But at the end of the day, it's what we were working off before all this hit the fan. We were looking at a 9 to 12 month schedule.
Okay. All right, and then I think if I may, I would love to tell you guys to do this. Why don't you provide a quarterly update of all the activities that you're doing over there, and then share that with Joe, and he'll send it out to the council. I mean, that way they can see everything you're doing. I don't, even if it's small stuff, write it down when you do it, put it together so everybody knows what activities are going on over there. I mean, because that, I guess that would be helpful. You know, I'm not trying to, I know it's hard. Maybe you're doing all these things. A lot of us don't know exactly what's going on at the time. Be nice to have a list so we know some sort of just, it doesn't have to be detailed. It doesn't have to be anything proprietary. Just, you know, hey, here's the activities.
And the other thing I would point out, we do have agreements with the town, and if we are not in line with those agreements, you certainly have your rights to enforce them. So, you know,
Right.
but that said, there are some things that we brought to everybody's attention, or brought to Joe and Mayor Shaw's attention a few months ago that need to be addressed, that have to do with investment in the property and the reason that it's stalled. And I can't say any more than that without,
Right.
you know.
Now we'll talk to the council about that. We'll be glad to brief the council about that. So
Well,
we
I would love to make sure that
well, no,
the
we
reason
need
we
to
asked
share
for
it internally first, and we could share that without having we don't have to have a closed session. We don't have to do any of that. Me and Joe.
well,
will have
I'd also throw out that we're happy to
With the
meet
town
one-on-one
attorney.
with anybody who wants to meet with us to talk about it. As long as, you know,
And again, I would caution the council about doing that. That's the same thing, Steve. I mean, we would rather have all this out in the open, in the public that needs to be open. I want the public to be aware of what's going on. Because if coming down the road's a major scope change at this project, I want the citizens of Sykesville to know what the hell's going on, right? I don't want them to be blindsided by a major scope change. So that stuff should be out in the open. So I would caution
Mayor,
the council members.
well, we're not talking about that though. That's fine. I don't disagree. That's a,
No, I know. I want it. I'm saying, so the contract stuff, we can definitely talk with the town attorney. We could talk internally with our council, and then, you know, we'll see what some of the issues are. We know what those concerns are, but that's like you said, it's a major thing. We don't need a closed session thing for that.
but just to be clear, the things that we're talking about keeping confidential on our side is we're being asked more questions about financial issues and partner issues, and than I in 30 years I've ever heard.
Well,
and
asking Stacy was not
For the record, I asked 0 questions about your partnerships.
right.
I made a comment with respect to how that affects my confidence level, but we can move on from there.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
have
well,
another question.
it has come up in the last 2 meetings for sure.
Nobody cares about the business partners at this point. That's your decision. That's a total your business decision. So
Mayor,
but it does. There are ramifications, I think, to Stacy's point, on the council, because these decisions you make, they are your purview to make, but they carry some consequences, I would say, obviously, clearly. So,
Well, that sounds rather ominous,
Mayor,
but
just to be clear, this is not a change in the overall scope of the project. We're just.
no, right. No, and I understand. I meant down the road. What I was getting at is,
We're just funding one piece of the project
Yes.
differently than we'd expected. It's
Right.
trying to move the thing forward.
no, I know. I meant some of the other.
Frustrated by lack of progress than I am.
Right, and I get that. So I was just concerned. I'm saying if down the road a major scope is coming to the change, the public needs to be aware of how this ever happened. Like, how did this become this? And so that's my point. And I want that.
I promise, we have major.
We're not
studies-
there yet. I
We
mean,
have major studies in flight right now. We will share all of those.
right. I understand. I mean, so it's going to be, yeah. So anyway, that's a whole nother conversation. So I guess to Al's point, we could spend all night on this because this is very intricate. This is the $750,000 reallocation. Doesn't sound like, well, so, I mean, I asked my question and it was answered. So any other questions for these guys? Do you want to, we can just move on.
I have a comment. It's not so much a question, but a comment here. Obviously, it's clear that our expectations of what's being communicated on both sides is incompatible, and we need to make them compatible. So we should step back, calm down, and come up with a way of doing as much as in public as possible, and what little can't be done in public be done in private. But pardon me, but I'm not happy with our course and speed either, but we've been hit by a type 19 COVID torpedo, and we got a fire going of $750,000 we got to put out. I would think we should resolve that before we sink, and then worry about getting to our destination.
Good point. Thanks, Mark. Anybody else comments?
Yeah, I do
I'm
have.
interested. Go ahead.
Just a follow-up question from Stacy's. I don't think it was ever answered. Could any of the money of the 750,000 be used for roof repairs or stabilization? I think it was mentioned that for one of the buildings, it might be low six figures. So can any of that $750,000 be used for that purpose?
Well, whether or not it's used for that purpose, Al, am I right? I had the wrong person.
That's okay.
Leo.
Leo,
That's okay.
sorry. I had my glasses off for a second. You know, I can speak, whether or not it comes from that, I can speak offline with Roger about that. I don't have what I have on that building to address the dining hall specifically, it was a number to redo the entire roof. I will get a number to fill that one gap. It's unfortunate because there are a lot more holes in the roof. That's the one, Stacy, that you see. There are a lot of roof leaks out there, and the bill on those roofs is multi-million dollars to get them all done. But if that building is a particular concern, I'm in discussion. I'm in contact with our roofer. Been in contact with them within the past couple of days about finishing up on Building F. I will ask him about that. Whether or not it comes from the grant, I don't think it should come from the grant for tax reasons. But if it comes from some other place, I mean, we do have money sitting in escrow that if it wasn't bound up in certain ways, if we had some flexibility, we could use the money for that. Some of the money for that. But I'm reluctant to use it on anything that's going to be tax inefficient, but I can talk to Roger about other sources for it. And we can talk to the town about fixing one of the problems we have with the escrows to free up some of that money for that. We've got a lot of money sitting in escrow right now, well over $1 million that we can't access right now. And I can't say any more about it than that.
Thanks.
And so there is money sitting there if we can get things restructured to address some of the problems that you guys are discussing. And Stacy, maybe, and Leo, maybe that's something that I should have said before, but I'm really reluctant to talk about those escrows because they're contractual in nature and they're things that need to change to allow us to access that money. If we could access that money, we would use it. We would commit to use it for certainly some more substantial roof repairs.
Thank you.
The one other item that I guess I have a question about, sorry, Stacy, I think I see it trying to jump in there, is so earlier I'd asked a question about the potential of a change in the scope, and Mayor Shaw mentioned that maybe there's a potential change coming down the pike. I guess the question is do you anticipate that happening? And when would you be ready to provide an update to us in reference to that?
So, Jeremiah, I've always been clear, and maybe not so much with you because you're a newer face, but we've always been fighting the market. And so we do need to look at some changes. If this is going to be
just to answer the question, we don't need to get into the weeds of it. I mean, when do you think you would be able to get
Mayor Shaw, I said at the beginning of this discussion, August 20th, we've asked for a meeting from you guys.
No, I meant to propose
October 20th.
Or to come
You
up
mean
with
October 20th?
to give us a new
I said October.
plan,
I said
vision of this parcel that works.
We've asked to meet with the mayor and the planning.
You can send that over to Joe. We'll look at it and we'll have a meeting.
Mayor,
yeah.
We've requested a meeting where Secretary McCord and Secretary Holt are.
I understand, but we don't even need to have that meeting. We need to see the scope numbers to make it work, right? Then we can figure that out, right?
Mayor Shaw, I got to tell you, when they're talking about ways to invest a substantial amount of money to help bridge a $30 million gap,
right?
They want to have a sit down, and we want to have a sit down with them too. They're trying to help us solve a problem, and this
I
wasn't,
understand, but
this
we don't
wasn't,
need to know what it looks like. That's the whole point. If you got something in mind, we need to see it, you know? If it's
you will,
it's 800
We're-
residential
we're-
units,
We're working on that visioning right now with these hundreds of thousands of dollars of studies and with millions of dollars in state assistance, potentially. And that's what we're trying to draw all together and pull together for this meeting on October 20.
and that,
I think now's a good time. Just let me jump in here. I mean, we're an hour into our meeting and we've kind of deferred into several different directions here, which, you know, kind of exactly what kind of started this whole conversation was we understand that there's a lot of information that still needs to be presented. There's a lot of information that the council still needs so that they have a better understanding of the overall project. I think for the purposes of tonight, the grant really is the item that needs to be decided. Once that is decided one way or another, we can start working through these communication issues and how better we can, provide updates to council, what needs to be done in executive session, what can be in public session, and move on from there. But you know, we can sit here all day or all night and talk about the complexity of the Warfield because it is a very complex project. However, I don't think that moves the ball until we have a better understanding of, you know, what can we talk about? What are we going to be comfortable talking about in open session? What are we going to be comfortable talking about in executive? And again, that's exactly what we've been asking for, you know, since this grant question came up. But it doesn't help us solve the ultimate question of, are we going to allow the change of scope for the strategic demolition grant with the information that we currently have? Otherwise, we'll sit here for the next few hours trying to make that decision.
So with that, Joe, I'll make a motion, and I'm just going to use the motion that was for the August 10th meeting for the minutes. I'll make a motion to approve the new scope of work, and the town will serve as the administrators of the grant, but will not pay the contractors. Is that sufficient to what you're looking for, Joe?
That will work.
So I'd
Second.
like to open up I have some discussion points on it. So one of the reasons I was asking the questions I was asking tonight is because one of the reasons that motion failed the last time we had a discussion about it was because we wanted to get some assurance from Roger, you, and Steve from you in reference to when we could actually see a plan. We've talked about the need to have the open communication. Mark, I appreciate your thoughts in reference to that. This is a very complicated issue. I'm open to open and closed sessions as appropriate, according to what the mayor said earlier with the Open Meetings Act. But I guess one of the things we need to have is we need to have some commitment that we're going to see this, the next steps of this plan unfold. Otherwise, I don't know how the rest of this will go as we move forward. And I'll tell you that I join Joe in his eagerness to see this 750,000 stay in this community. I would like to see that happen as well. But in order for that to happen, I think we need to know from you all that, when can we see the plan come in? To the mayor's point earlier.
And to answer that point, we have a whole complement of materials that show various scenarios that we planned on rolling out in a meeting on October 20th with staff and the mayor and the heads of the commissions as a starting point. And the reason that it's happening in that context is, to be honest, is there are going to be discussions, including state officials, about potential funding in connection with those various scenarios, and they need to be able to happen with some level of open discussion and it's just not appropriate for a public meeting. But the mayor and the town manager and the chairman of the planning commission, the historic district commission, will have all that information on October 20th if we get confirmation on that meeting or whenever we get that meeting scheduled.
So I guess my follow-up would be, would it be safe to say that we could figure out what parts of the updates could be provided to the council in closed and open session for the month of November? And I'm trying to nail down a date, because I tell you that the reason that the motion failed last time is because we didn't have this information. And with this information, that may be salient to how this vote goes.
Well, I think, Jeremiah, I talked to you. I think the tax code changing definitely kind of opened my eyes a little bit to it. Like, this is why they're redirecting the funds to a park. And, you know, a finished park in this project, again, I think will be a selling point and make this project more attractive to outside people and outside vendors.
Look, some of the issues when it comes to closed session are definitely contractual in nature, and we will get with Joe and try to we just talked today about trying to figure out what could and could not be talked about. I was under some confusion because we had a closed meeting in the past, and it was a fairly broad update. I mean, some things and some other things that we would rather not share might be things that have to do with tenants we're talking to, or potential users over there that, that's not something that you want to, openly debate, but certainly something you want to get feedback on, so.
But Al, I appreciate your point that this is momentum, just like the townhouses. Every step forward helps the overall project.
Yeah, you got a finished park. You got a finished park over there. Who doesn't want to move in to a finished park?
Somebody who's going to be moving in next to a building that's falling over. Anyway, the park would have to be a lot prettier than the ugly buildings falling over. But to the point about to Jeremiah's point regarding why it failed, why the vote failed last time, why the motion failed last time. The simple comment you just made, Steve, about the fact that, you don't want to reveal potential tenants, of course. But the fact that there are potential tenants is information that we're yearning to have, so that we have an idea and an increased confidence level that I know is lacking amongst the council right now with respect to the improvement to the historic buildings. And if I'm not mistaken, correct, Jeremiah? That's the point you were hoping to make?
Yeah, we're trying to get some assurances that the project is moving in the right direction. We appreciate the efforts that have gone in by all the parties, but we'd like to see where we are currently and what the plan is for the future. And some of that plan, to the mayor's point earlier, and maybe to others' points, should be made public, because the public may have some ideas in reference to the thoughts about the visioning. But then some of them shouldn't be, right? Because they're, as you mentioned earlier, Steve and Roger, they're things that need to be held that are proprietary at this time. And what I'm looking for is to have the plan laid out so that we would know what can be shared privately and what could be shared in open session, so that the council could get, and the public could get an update in November. That's what I'm looking for. And that would be based off of the October meeting. And you might say, well, November's too soon. Okay, December, right? What we're looking for is a time when we would be able to get this update.
So I will say that anything that happens in that October meeting can certainly be shared via the people at the town who participated in that particular meeting. I do want to make clear, Jeremiah, to your point and to the mayor's point earlier, there's no intention to we understand that, look, you go through a zoning change or you go through any kind of land use action, it's subject to public review. That's not what we're talking about being held confidential. The thing that makes it so important to pair the two in the discussion initially in a controlled environment is the fact that there's so much there's so many funding sources tied to the particular uses, A. And B, the other thing that's kind of tricky about this is there's some contractual issues that may drive a lot of this, that are hangovers probably a bad word, but are kind of surviving obligations of the sales contract. And so we do need to have a discussion with a more detailed discussion with Joe and Dennis about what those things are and what they're not. I just want to make it clear, land use actions we get. When the rubber hits the road, it's a public process. And that's why I said it's a great time that maybe this is all coming to fruition when the comp plan is being reviewed. Joe, may I make one other question about the conduit on the funds? You all need to direct pay the vendors was the thing, but you're not obligated. You're in no way obligated. It's just when the work is done, the payment would be made directly to the vendor. We would be the ones obligated to the vendor. So if there was a contractual failure, they would come after us, not the town. We're not binding the town in any way to guarantee payment for any improvements under this grant agreement. I just want to be really clear about that, just so there's no confusion.
Well, again, and how the contract would have to work is we would, when those invoices were received, they would be sent to the state, and the state would have to would then give the funds to the town. The town would then remit them to the contractor, if that's how
that's correct. That's correct.
But
but
the town is not coming out of pocket to pay
Right.
the contractor and then looking for reimbursement. I don't think that was the understanding when the grant was
No.
applied for.
No, not at all. And in fact, the town is not obligated under the contract. The developer is, and there will be an acknowledgement in the contract. So the contractor or contractors understand that the source of payment is a grant agreement. But ultimately, if there's a failure to pay, it comes back to the developer and it comes back to the real estate.
Right.
They can file a mechanics lien. In fact,
Well,
they
we
could
don't need to get into the details of
Yeah.
that. That'll be worked out in the grant agreement, assuming we actually ever get one when the council votes to approve the scope of work change.
Good point.
So is that, Joe, does that motion need to change, or is that?
No, it's fine exactly the way it is.
Okay.
It just needs to be, but again, we can work out the specific details of how those payments will work in the grant agreement. The one thing I wanted to protect against was to make sure that the town was not obligated ever to come out of pocket with money that went to the contractor. We would receive the invoices, they would be sent to the state. The state would then provide us with a check that we will send to the contractor. If there's any delay in receiving that payment from the state, the developer would be on the hook to make some sort of payment to the contractor.
That's correct.
So for the fourth time, will say again, I still have a question before we can bring the motion to a vote.
Well, nobody seconded it, so it just.
Correct. So even before the second, I need to.
Technically, you need a
still have-
second before we discuss, but I think that ship sailed.
Yeah.
I defer to Stacy to get her question in.
Thank you. You had mentioned, Steve, that the time has passed as far as seasonally for the kind of infrastructure improvements to occur. When would it be possible for that work to be done? Should the scope of work be agreed to be changed?
So yeah, good question. So this has to do with spawning season, a trout spawning season.
Mhm.
And so the window for doing the actual wetlands work is April to September. I don't know the exact dates in those months. I can get that to you, but that is roughly that is when it is, April to September.
Okay.
What we would spend the next few months doing is, I mean, we had already started getting bids for the work, but we would try to firm that up so we could hit the ground running in the spring and do that work. Depending on what the bids come back at, Stacy, on the park work, to the extent there's money left over, we would want to put that to work on infrastructure improvements, the other infrastructure improvements that are mentioned in the scope of work, which would include some paving and parking improvements for the existing back with the existing buildings.
All in
And,
parcel D, yeah, and the
yeah.
historic-
Yeah, it's in parcel D. So that could presumably start sooner, but what we want to do is make sure we have enough money first and have a contract locked up on the park improvements.
And so as a follow-up question to that one, what kind of like expiration date, for lack of better terms, is there on this grant?
You have 2
Award.
years. Well, Joe, do you want to field that?
Yeah, it's a 2-year grant program. So the idea is that all the funds have to be expensed in those 2 years.
beginning and ending, what date are we looking at for that?
When
to
the
be
grant
concluded?
agreement is signed. So
Right.
again, the clock hasn't even started ticking yet.
That's what I wanted to make clear to the council and to anyone listening. I'm feeling like we're being asked to not only make a motion, but vote on this evening, when in fact, I still have the same concerns and requests for updates, desire to hear updates, as I think much of the council does. And we still haven't even answered Jeremiah's question with respect to when we can expect that kind of update, which I believe would be helpful for us to be able to say, well, then we'll make this decision after that update. I mean, I still am not willing to approve any change in scope of work with respect to this grant until I get the updates that I want to have. So
we'll come back and give you an update at every meeting you want us to give us an update, give you an update. Our concern is that some of the nature of some of the questions and comments that have been made in prior in the meeting back in August were things that we know that we think should be discussed are things that shouldn't be. So there's some things we can come back and update you on, and if we can't, we'll tell you that there's something we need to talk about in a private session. We'll come back whenever you want us to come back.
So real quick, so Jeremiah, to answer your question, whatever information we get on this meeting on October 20th, we will share with the council. However, I would not think that's going to be a update to the change of the scope of the project. So that will be whatever information we get, but I would not consider that to be a change to the scope in the project. It might be.
It will be a start. It will certainly be a starting point.
Correct. It'll be it, but that's yeah. So I just want to be clear. That would not be a comprehensive like change to the plans. It'll be whatever they're discussing there. We'll share that and we'll brief the council on whatever we get at that meeting. So to that, I hope that helps to the.
Yeah, I think
Mayor, it gives me what I need to second the motion.
Okay. All right.
so. I want to say that this park was in the plan from the beginning. There's not a change of scope with this project. It's just a change of scope with this grant. That's all we're voting or approving on.
Al, I really appreciate you clarifying, but I'm very clear without your clarification on what it is we're discussing and voting on this evening. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So we got a motion and a second. Are we ready to vote on this, or is there any more comments? All right. So all those in favor?
Aye.
I need a show of hands.
So what do we got? 4?
I see 3.
Who's the fourth?
I thought Leo would. Did Leo say aye? No. All right. I'll change. I'll go ahead and approve it. I don't want to, but I don't want to lose the money. I mean, I understand. I'll say 4.
And for clarification, nobody's losing the money. We've already said that it wouldn't be lost unless it's 2 years expires without expenditures being made.
No,
That's if the agreement has been signed.
That's right.
There's always potential for the state, because again, this was awarded last year. There's always potential for the state to re-award this to somebody else if we're not going to move forward with it.
Yep, understood.
All right. So anyway, all right. All those opposed?
Aye.
Nay.
3. Any abstentions? All right. Okay. So the motion to change it or has passed. So. All right, guys.
Thank you.
All right. I think that's it. So, all right. Our next item on the agenda is to consider and discuss act on capital purchases. Joe, I'll let you take this. We've had some changes.
Yeah, just a couple of quick updates to the CIP and allow us to move forward with a couple of purchases here. So the first one, or the bigger one, is so we have approved in the FY21 CIP the purchase of a small dump truck. The amount of money we put in the capital budget was $68,000 for that. As we've gone to price out this purchase, and as a matter of fact, we even bid it ourselves, the cost of that actually was $12,160 higher than what we had put in the capital improvement plan. So what we're hoping to do is ask the council tonight to approve the additional funding be allocated from the unencumbered fund balance. of $12,180. The other item is more of a shifting of funding. So again, when the town council approved our fund balance policies, I want to say back in May, we approved the reserving of all the funds necessary that were identified within the capital improvement plan. So one of the projects was the purchase of new vehicle cameras for some of our patrol vehicles that have been dated. So we had 2 in next year's CIP, and then the last one in 2023. What's come to light is these older cameras are simply not serviceable anymore. They're not being serviced by the manufacturer anymore. We've started to encounter some problems with them. So rather than waiting for 2 additional fiscal years before we purchase them, because the funds have already been reserved, we would like to accelerate those purchases and put them in current fiscal year and just zero out those purchases for fiscal years 2022 and 2023. So I think that was $17,200 for the purchase of the new cameras. So again, that's the request tonight, that we can move forward with those 2 adjustments to the CIP.
All right. So, and anybody have any questions on these? I did want to thank Derek for working hard on this. I know he worked every which way to Sunday to try to get this number down for us. So thanks, Derek. I appreciate all the efforts in it, trying to. So we were back to square one, but we needed it. So thanks for all the work on this, both you and Joe. Thank you. I appreciate it. But so, and this will upfront fund those other ones from the out years, right, for the cameras. So we'll have them all. Yeah.
So again, when you see this capital improvement plan again, it just won't have those camera purchases in future fiscal years.
Okay. All right. So
I just have a quick question. Sorry, Mayor. This question's, I guess, for Derek and or Joe. Or not, that's not true. It's for Chief and or Joe. The vehicle cameras, are they transferable from one building to one building? Good God, where's my head? From one vehicle to another?
And Chief can confirm this, but yes, assuming they're still serviceable, if you buy a new vehicle, you can take those out and then install them into another new vehicle.
That is correct.
Thank you.
And
so when we get an electric police cruiser, we can move it into that. Thank you.
I knew that was coming.
Yes, sir.
I want to start with the electric motorcycle first. I think that'll be awesome. So we'll start with that. One quick question though, is it upgradable to tag on to Stacy's point? Because I think what we're seeing is the technology is changing so fast, Chief. So what is the outlook for these? Do they have some upgrade capability if it comes down the road, or?
They do. In fact, the biggest key to them is that if we move in the direction of body worn cameras, which, as you all know, is projected to be a hot topic in this current legislative session, we'll have the infrastructure in place to add the body cameras to the system. It will have everything in place. It'll just be a matter of buying the body cameras, and we'll have the whole infrastructure in place. So it's a buildable platform that'll pay off in the end, if we get to that point.
Okay, great. All right, that was my question. All right, that's awesome. Okay, any other questions on this topic? Okay, so then I guess we need a motion to.
I'll make a motion to approve the capital spending adjustments as requested by adding $12,160 from the unencumbered fund balance to the purchase of a new dump truck and shifting previously approved funding in 2022 $11,500 and 2023 $5,700, and the purchase of 3 new in-car cameras for FY 2021.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All righty. Okay, thank you guys. All right, next item is the introduction of ordinance number 2020-08, and this is the ethics ordinance update. Had a couple of these different ones sent out, so hopefully you've had a chance.
Sorry for all the several emails, including ordinances here, but again, the purpose of this update is every year we have to certify to the state that our ethics ordinance is in fact compliant with the state requirements. In this year's review, there was one very minor provision that was missing from our ordinance that we want to go ahead and get added, and After that review, there were several others that that Dennis and his folks identified that could be go ahead and included. So if we were going to be opening up the ordinance, we wanted to go ahead and include it all. So again, the first set of ordinances that went out last week only included the first three, and then the one that got sent out today included the rest, which was basically an expansion of the definition section, the addition of some examples of the use of prestige of office, and then finally just a clarification on what needs to be disclosed when it comes to indebtedness to entities doing business with the town. So again, all of these amendments are relatively minor to our ethics ordinance, but again, we want to go ahead and get them in place, or at least introduced to you, so that we can certify to the state that we are compliant. And then, of course, we can move forward with the approval at our next meeting, which will be Tuesday, October 13th.
Okay, any questions on this topic from anybody? I know, thanks,
I
Mark.
made some updates only to improve it. I'm fully in favor of everything. It literally is wording that I had an issue with. I'm all behind what it says.
Great.
And just to clarify, sorry, Mark, but Mark pointed out that there's a few of the sections that refer to may not desist or may. We're going to change those to shall, so that's a little stronger. We've got the AOK to do that.
Yeah.
Make the motion, Mark. Make the motion.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I make a motion that the changes to the ethics provisions be accepted.
With those couple of provisions from.
Yeah.
As amended, yes.
Yes, thank you.
It's just the introduction though, right?
Yeah, let me make the motion if you don't mind, Mark. I'm gonna make a motion to approve the introduction of ordinance 2020-08 as presented with the amendments just mentioned, and schedule the public hearing and adoption for the council meeting scheduled for Tuesday, October 13th.
Second.
Thank you, Stacy. Perfect.
Thank you, sir.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, yep, and thanks Joe for getting that worked out. Appreciate
And
it.
Dennis,
Thanks.
a lot of
Yeah,
work. A
Dennis
lot of
and-
work that they threw into that last week. Appreciate
Yeah,
that.
thank you. I appreciate it, because we do have one of the most comprehensive ones by following the state guidelines, so it is important. Although I haven't known any council people to, if you find a way to use your prestige of office, by all means share that with the entire council, just so we can laugh, if nothing else. All right, let me get back to our agenda. Our next item on the agenda here is the announcements. So next, the mayor and town council will be on Tuesday, October 13th, and this will be a Zoom meeting again. We do have volunteer opportunities available on the Historic District Commission's Spark, Police Auxiliary. A crossing guard be a great time to be a crossing guard, because you don't have to show up, really. You could be the guard and not have to work. If you want, you can contact the town at sykesville.net for more information, and we'll work on that. There's still time to respond to the 2020 United States Census. So please, if you haven't done so already, please do that, because it's very important for us as far as money and things like that come to the town, so the county, and then consequently the town. So we're asking all the community members to do their part and help meet the goal of counting everyone once and only once, but in the right place. So please take a minute to complete the census questionnaire. And you can also complete it online at 2020census.gov or by phone at 844-330-2020. And obviously your personal information is protected and confidential. So we'll get on to staff updates. Any staff updates before we get on to the next?
The only thing I wanted to mention was, again, October is going to be a pretty busy month regarding the comprehensive plan. So there's going to be quite the rollout of information, both for informational purposes, but also soliciting feedback from folks. So the earliest you'll see it is starting October 1st. We will be pushing out a community survey. So we're going to encourage as many people to participate in that as possible. So again, if you have neighbors that are on the fence about something, please encourage them to participate in the survey. Plus, starting on October 14th we'll have an online event where we'll talk about the importance of a comprehensive plan, and how it helps visioning for the future and making decisions that affect the public. So again, we want to make sure everybody knows exactly what the comprehensive plan is. There'll be a town hall listening session on October 21st, again, virtually, so that we can solicit feedback from folks directly, provide comments on, what they want to see Sykesville move towards. And then there will be a visioning session for downtown. And basically what this will be is an opportunity for people to really start throwing out ideas of what they want to see and how they want to see downtown expand in the areas around downtown. So it doesn't have to be necessarily specific to just Main Street. And then again, with our consultants, they'll be able to draw that virtually so that people can see kind of the ideas that they have kind of play out real time, as they're being talked about. So again, we're looking at that probably towards the end of October, October 28th, 29th. And then once we get all this feedback and we actually start talking or start putting pen to paper on the comprehensive plan, we will roll out what's known as a virtual open house. So again, this will give folks the ability to be able to go online and see the updates as they've been going along and watch, or I guess stay up to date on all of the information that's been gathered. So they'll kind of see the comprehensive plan start to take shape virtually. And again, this will be accessible 24/7. So anytime somebody's interested in seeing what's going on with the comprehensive plan, they'll be able to check out this virtual open house. So again, I wanted to make sure everybody heard that, and hopefully if anybody's still listening to the meeting, got to hear about what's going on in October.
Correct the issues with the survey coding.
Yes, I think we're good with the survey. I think we're in good shape. There might be a tweak or two we make between now and October 1st, but I think it's set.
Okay, and then one thing I wanted to say is, can we start putting these out on both the Facebook page, the news flash? I know they're probably out there already, but can we do news flash on this too?
Yeah, there's going to be, there's a branding effort that we've been putting together, and we've held off. Looks like probably tomorrow or Wednesday, you'll start to see that really get pushed out and made public. Because again, we didn't want to pull the trigger on the advertising until we made sure that the survey was set. So we'll also be at the farmers market too. I forgot to mention that. So the farmers market on the 4th and the 25th, staff will be there, and hopefully we won't accost too many people about trying to convince them to fill out the survey or learn a little more about the comprehensive plan.
All right, that's great. All right, I appreciate it. Yeah, and if you could just get out the timelines, I think that'll be helpful to everybody. Yep. All right, that's good information. Anything else, Joe? Any other updates? Or
that's all I have for now.
Okay. All right. Oh, and there's just one thing I think we wanted to talk about Halloween. We'll have it at the next meeting. We usually officially approve that, but the intention is to go with Halloween from 6 to 8 with guidelines for safety being provided. And in light of COVID-19, I did talk with the other mayors, and this is the what's going on across the county. So we're not in a vacuum. We're everybody's having Halloween. So I think our plan is to have it and then provide safety tips and guidelines.
Carrie's got a great list started of best practices. So
great. Yeah. So 6 to 8 and then the council officially approve it at the next meeting, but we wanted to roll it out as quickly as we could, just because we know everybody's got questions right now. So
Carrie, are you working with the other clerks from the other municipalities just to share those best practices?
So I took my list straight from the CDC. I didn't contact any of the other clerks, but I definitely can.
I would just suggest that you'd reach out to the others, because they might want yours, but we might get a couple tidbits from them too. Just a suggestion.
Definitely, I'll email them.
I would think we want to stress conformity to other municipalities during this time.
Yeah, and in fact, Jeremiah, Westminster offered to provide theirs because they would already started working on theirs about a week or so ago. So Carrie, definitely reach out to them. They had a pretty good list, and they were going to send that. They were actually supposed to send it over. I think he forgot, but so she could probably get some help from that. All right, Chief, public safety report.
Yes, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Try to keep it brief. I know we've been here for a while now. This PSR covers the period September 5th through the 20th. During that time, we had a total of 456 events. Just some of the highlights. We had 9 assist other agency, 8 community policing events, 33 foot patrols, 270 patrol checks, 50 traffic enforcement initiatives, again for 456 total events. During that period, we also had 11 incident reports, which are reflected in your packet. I would entertain any questions you have of any of those incidents.
Any questions for the chief?
Okay.
Good report, Chief.
Thank you. I'll just highlight that you'll see that we did make some, place some charges against an individual who we believe was lighting off illegal fireworks in the Raincliff community. You'll see 2 reports in there that reflect that information. And you'll note that there was a burglary of the smoke and snack shop. And I'm happy to report that we have some suspects developed through Howard County. And Officer Brandenburg is working on following up on those leads. And we hope to be able to place some charges in that case, which would be fantastic. So I'll keep you abreast of what happens with that.
Hey, Chief, it's not for you necessarily, but for Joe, any updates on the skate park reopening? We had talked about that at the last council meeting. I don't know if there's any updates.
They're still pushing to get that parking lot done. I think the concern that we have is if the parking lot can't be finished, regardless of some of the minor work that needs to happen over there, it's just going to create too much of a crowd. So, you know, they're pushing to try to get that done. I don't know if it's going to be this week, but I know they're getting closer.
Thanks.
We promised 10-1, man. So can
we're pushing. We're pushing. We're trying.
I mean, are we?
Yeah, I saw them there putting in the pavers, but they've got at least 2 or 3 more rows to go. And it looks like a lot of work still when I've driven by. So just, I mean, you know that already, but.
Can we still open the park regardless of whether or not that's finished? I mean, I didn't know how big a deal it would be because if there's just, I don't know. I was hoping to open the park.
Mayor, we'll certainly reach out to them. And if there's a way to get it open and keep people safe, we'll certainly do that by October 1st.
Okay. Well, if we don't, maybe we should change the sign to opening delayed for till 10-3.
Because of pavers.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, I've made promises to everybody. We're opening come heck or high water. So I don't know. That's going to be.
I have 2.
Yes. So just take down the fence, tear down the wall. Come on, man. All right. We'll do the best we can, but we want it to be safe. I don't want to risk anybody getting in trouble, but God, I hope we can get that open. All right. Let me get back to my agenda here. Okay. So council committee reports. Let's start with Leo since I almost forgot him last time. So Leo, you're up.
Yeah, actually, there's not much to report this time. We did have a board meeting. A lot of it was focused on sponsorship efforts and potential planning for events next year in 2021 if we are able to pull those off. So we're going to try to put together a calendar and a plan to present to the council if we are able to get back to some kind of normal next year.
Okay, great. What about contingency plans? Because I think we're all worried about next year being viable for, again, like God, it's just killing me thinking about it.
We'll continue with what we did this year with grants and smaller events, more than likely, if we're still next year where we are this year.
So one of the things I wanted to just throw out there, I know it's not on the agenda, but I wanted to throw out for the council to think about any of these leftover monies that we had from, you know, that weren't utilized. I would like to put them aside for the DSC for next year. I think we should start thinking about that, you know, as far as keeping it available at least, because I think we're going to be in at least, I mean, what I'm hearing right now is even if they came out with a vaccine by the first of the year, it would be fall of 2021 before there was like mass vaccination if everybody did it, you know, so that's got me concerned about our big events again going through. So something to think about. Just wanted to throw it out there. Obviously we won't discuss it too far tonight, but just throw it on the radar. All right. Who's up next? Let's see. Well, Jeremiah, anything from the HOA? Probably not yet, right? The next meeting is coming up from Raincliff.
Yeah, so the next meeting is on October 5th. That's their annual budget meeting, which I'll be attending. The next Maryland Municipal League Legislative Committee will be during the virtual fall conference on October 8th. That's where the different municipal leaders will be voting on the MML agenda for the year. Just a reminder that the only bill that they're looking to move forward is in reference to highway user revenues, just as a reminder from last meeting. And then I have a new unofficial liaison role with the Carroll County Board of Education. They actually have a meeting coming up on September 30th. It's an update meeting. They're going to be going through their capital improvement plan. And just want to say thank you publicly, Mayor, for reaching out to the mayors and getting that working. So thank you.
Yep, thank you. And yeah, appreciate it. So yeah, Jeremiah has agreed to do some and to whatever levels possible. So I don't want you to feel committed to every meeting, but whatever level he can do to open up a conduit to the school board, even though we really don't have it's a county board, per se, but there are issues that affect the municipality. So if he was willing, everybody was like, hey, if he's willing to do it and bring back the information, great. So thanks for that. And then he can always share municipal concerns with them as well. So it should, I think, be positive. So thank you for being willing to do that. Okay, and then Al, since you're on the screen next.
Yeah, let me make sure I got my microphone on. So
yep, we can hear you.
There we go. Oh, good. Thank goodness. September 25th was the merchant meeting. They went through a lot of stuff. They introduced the DSC. Julie made a welcome to Main Street welcome kit tote. That was quite nice that she showed off there for any new businesses coming to Main Street. The DSC went through their plans for next year, the events next year, and shared that with the merchants. The DSC requested an updated list of businesses that are actually down in Main Street. They talked a little bit about the survey from the master plan, and then they got to planning Ladies Night, which is October 2nd, and just the logistics of that. And November 6th is Willy Wonka First Friday night, which sounds like a lot of fun with the golden ticket and a lot of chocolate. We talked a little bit about the decorations for Christmas. Joe asked me to get some feedback on that. I guess I'll have to feed that. I'll have to share that with you, Joe. The next meeting will be October 30th. Commissioner Rothschild and the mayor both have a conflict for the September 30th commissioner meeting, so I'm going to reschedule that hopefully sometime in October. But it was a good meeting. Thanks.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Al. And then I guess one topic on that was maybe we should touch on a little bit is the barriers, right? We did get another comment Joe received from Dandelion Bakery saying that the barriers are causing her some issues trying to get out cakes and stuff out there, and that it's blocking things. So I think we had talked about, so did you get any additional feedback on that from the business owners?
Not really, just like it was 2 or 3 of them, some were saying it's okay, some were saying it's, time to go type of stuff. So I think the ice cream place down there, Katie's Place, is definitely utilizing it more than the Market Tavern area is.
So I think, Joe, maybe, and this is my suggestion, and I guess if you get some sort of consensus from the council, or this could be a staff decision, really, I guess. But I would say maybe leave the tables, remove the barriers, because the people can still sit out on there on the street sidewalk and without having the barriers. I don't think I know that's a little bit different, but if there's any other comments, sharing with Joe, and then I think it's time to get them out myself.
All right. Yeah, we're happy to work with the merchants to make sure that they still have seating available on the sidewalks. Now, granted, there are requirements that you have to meet as far as ADA compliance. So there's got to be certain passable areas, but we're happy to work with them in other ways other than keeping the barriers out there.
Okay. All right. Okay. Maybe big sure. Oh, Spark, come on up, Stacy.
Woo! Just lost my camera. Hi, everybody. Okay. I too forcefully hit my unmute button. So with respect to Sykesville Parks and Rec, we have officially rescheduled the cleanup day. We had a rain out on the originally scheduled date, and it has been rescheduled for October 10th at 9 a.m. We've identified 2 areas that would benefit from some litter pickup. One of them is Burkett Park, and the other is Oklahoma Road, just above Norwood. And so any and all, calling on any and all volunteers, and they can meet. We're going to be splitting up, and wherever you guys want to meet us would be great at either of those 2 locations, at Burkett Park or right around the intersection of Norwood Avenue and Oklahoma Road. So again, that's say again.
I was just going to ask you what time it is.
9
Yeah, so again, that would be 9 a.m. is the meeting time, and we hope to be as productive as possible until noon. We will be providing Sykesville Parks and Rec, and the town will be providing the necessary trash bags. And we would advise everyone and anyone who has gloves, sturdy gloves, to bring their own. We will have protective vests to wear, green vests to kind of set yourselves apart from everyone else when there are vehicles in the area. Otherwise, I wanted to note that there was some general concern noted by some members of the committee with respect to park maintenance, and my hope is that and I know that staff is working on identifying, I guess, taking inventory, if you will, of the parks with respect to needed maintenance. Specifically, I know there was some concern with Beach Park, which has already been addressed, and staff is aware that the gazebo in Burkett Park has an issue with the floor and it needing repairs. So that's being addressed. My long-term wish actually is that the Department of Public Works could perhaps have more of a subcommittee with whose primary concern, or at least whose attention, at least on a couple of days a week, is specific to park maintenance. And I think that that all of us could benefit from that. So I know staff is aware of that request of mine and of Sparks. And just wanted to pass along that besides the fact that everybody that skateboards is mad they can't get out onto the skate park, there are just as many people thrilled about the new park at Cooper. And I've gotten neighbors and passerbys outside, when I'm outside, stopping me and yelling how happy they are about and how happy their children and grandchildren are playing in the new park and on the zip line, which I got to get out on because it looks like too much fun not to. And
it's another photo op opportunity.
It is, isn't it? Yes, I'll have to make sure there's someone there accidentally to do that. So I think that's my update for now for Spark. Thanks. Oh, our next meeting. Yeah, I know we always do that and I always forget to. Our next meeting will be the 4th Thursday, help me, in October, which is, Janice going to jump in before I look at my calendar.
23rd.
Thank you.
Wait a minute.
October 20th.
It's 22nd. Sorry.
October 22nd. That's cool. October 22nd. And I assume at this point it'll be a Zoom meeting, and most likely at 6 p.m. Correct, Jana?
Yes. And also, Stacy, the last movie is October 10th. It's the Halloween movie.
Thank you so much. Yes, the last movie. Thank you. And actually, I pulled it up on Facebook so I could announce it and just about didn't it. So,
oh, and also October 3rd is a concert.
Yes. And so Hotel Transylvania, The Addams Family, and Nightmare Before Christmas were all up for grabs. And the winner, what was the winner for the Halloween movie? I will find it and I'll jump on here before we leave updates, unless you have that. I should know that. Yeah, I'll come back. But anyway, it's October 20th.
Right.
Thank
all
you.
are good. So yeah, we'll be good.
They are.
All right, great. Thanks.
Sorry, Stacy, the movie's October 10th.
Yes, October 10th. Thank you.
Right. And then there's a concert on the 3rd, right?
Yes, October 3rd is a concert.
All right, that's great. Thank you. And then, the zip line will support 500 pounds. So I just cleared it. So anyway, so it's just so you know, it's safe to go check it out. You know?
All of you can take a turn.
Right, we can all take a turn, right? So get out there and take a turn and get your photo op.
Yeah, let me know when. I'll take photos and videos.
Yeah, man, because some of them could be pretty funny. Some of the kids really do look like they're having a great time on that. So whatever, thanks for all the work on that. Well, Jared too, especially in the staff, and then Stacy with the parks and all. So thanks.
Cool.
Pretty good stuff, man. That's a cool park, and then more to come there with the splash pad. Pretty wild. All right, so Anna, HDC.
Hey, we had a meeting on September 22nd. We had several applications. We revisited the window issues or the window for 7323 Springfield Avenue. That's the yellow house that recently sold. So he finally was able to locate windows that accommodated our requirements. He also requested door replacements that we approved. And then we had a request for a sign for a new business at 7250 Main Street, Unit 104. It is Happy Kids. So I'm not sure. It's the Muller building, the Muller complex. And it is the building where the side door, the front door faces Main Street, and the side door is the parking lot. It's a retail store that sells children's clothes and toys, and it looks pretty neat. And then our last application was for 7618 Main Street, which is Sykesville Station. They submitted an application, the notes to them that they needed to for the improvements that they made to the building. Repainting the deck, redoing all the deck rails, removing some obtrusive furniture that was outdated, regrading the front entrance, and putting a fence around the dumpster. So I'm sure that you've all seen it. Much improvements. Next meeting is going to be October 22nd, 7 o'clock, and I'm assuming it's a Zoom meeting. And Carrie, do we have any applications so far? Yes, we do. Okay, so we are going to have a meeting on October 22nd, 7 o'clock via Zoom. That's it.
Great. All right, thank you. And then Mark, Planning Commission.
We hadn't had a meeting since our last meeting, which I told you about. I did attend virtually the comprehensive plan meeting, but Joe did an exquisite job of covering that. And I haven't heard from Jana whether there will be a net meeting of the Planning Commission next month or not. Do we have anything that came in?
No.
So I guess that is no. I'm done. No, yeah, well, if there is, we'll let you know.
Okay, great. And so I was able to connect with Pat Greenwald for the Colored Schoolhouse. So they are doing there's not a whole lot of inside activities obviously going on right now, but she did make us aware of a couple of issues that are going on, sent them out to staff, and I talked with her. So we're working on those couple things. And then, and one of them was inside, maybe helping out with some of the maintenance of the building for that. So that's good. And they are teaching the kids out. So God bless the volunteers that are coming and doing the homework club outside each day. And they've had a couple of students participating in that. I don't know how long into the dark it'll go, or if they can, what time they can still catch daylight as the daylight shortens, but I guess they'll still be able to do it for the foreseeable future and as the weather permits. So I reached out to Jack to get him to talk to him. He has not called me back from the gatehouse. So I'll follow up with that again and let you know what's going on. I don't think there's a whole lot of activity going on there right now, but I will follow up with him and then have an answer for you at the next meeting of what's going on. We wanted to just talk to him about some of these activities and then fundraising things. So that's all I got on those.
And can I just jump in? I know that I had some confusion there at the end of my report with respect to the upcoming events. I just it's worthy of repeating and clarifying.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, thank you. So this Saturday, October 3rd, from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. is our concert in the park, and it's featuring Duffy and Rowe. So come out and enjoy some live thumb bumping, finger picking, traditional American country music with Duffy and Rowe. No alcohol allowed. Sponsored by Sykesville Parks and Rec. Thank you so much.
That's great.
Oh, and it's free. It's free, everybody, but bring your non-perishable.
There you go.
All right.
Okay. That's
And I
good.
would like, Ian, I'd like to add one more thing. Just to let everybody know that one of the longtime Sykesville businesses will be closing down soon. Done Right Furniture. Most of you probably know the owner, Bob Dunn, passed away last year. The family tried to keep it going, but it's just been a little difficult for them, especially with everything that's happened. The buildings are being sold, and I would imagine whoever is taking them over is going to be coming before the HDC soon at some point to rehab those buildings and start something new.
Yeah, well, sad to see them go. Thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, they've been here a long time and they got a lot of ties to the community. So appreciate you mentioning that. And we wish their family nothing but the best and thank them for all the years here in Sykesville. So
Thanks.
hopefully the new owners will take it to the next place. But thanks for that update. All right, any other business? I think we're pretty much at the end, right? Did I forget anything? Alrighty.
Motion to adjourn.
There you go. All right, I'll second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, all right. Well, thank you guys for a great meeting. I'm sorry the first topic took a little bit longer, but
Everybody knew it was going to be a long topic, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
I'm sorry you guys missed your whole first quarter of your Ravens game. Have a good evening.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, look.
Don't tell us the score.
Going at it.
I wouldn't ever do that.
Yeah.
Good
Ever.
Good night, everybody.
Good
Good night.
night. See y'all.
See ya.